IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison, exploring the complexity of human desire, where intimacy means insight, uncovering the truth about sex and relationships, delving into the science of seduction, your sex, your stories, and everything in between. This is Unzipped with Cary Harrison.
And it is Unzipped. And welcome to this special edition. We're going to talk a little bit about romance today. Before we do that, let me just remind you that we're also live streaming right now on YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison YouTube and subscribe so that we can stay connected when you show up at your destination, and switch over to the stream on your phone at the Cary Harrison YouTube channel, which you can also easily find, much more easily, at kpfk.net, kpfk.net, where you're also going to see our handsome guest upcoming. Why? Well, the grand human talent for self-sabotage is perhaps nowhere more evident than in the selection of a mate. A man, when buying a horse, will inspect its teeth, its hooves, its gait. A woman, when purchasing a hat, will turn it this way and that, ensuring that it flatters her face and does not make her resemble a Victorian lampshade. And yet, when it comes to choosing the poor soul with whom they will share their mornings, their bank accounts, and their steadily dwindling patience, it seems that both sexes exhibit the discernment of a drunken gambler betting it all on a three-legged mule, right? I mean, haven't we all had that experience? The reasons for this folly are as numerous as they are predictable. Some of us are drawn to beauty, mistaking good bone structure for good character. Others are lured by charm, forgetting that the man or woman who makes every other man or woman and woman or man and man feel special is not likely to stop at just one. Many of us believe that suffering is romantic, and taking as a lover the very person most certain to provide will provide you with that lifetime of anguish. And then there are those who simply lack the courage to be alone. Clutching at the nearest available human like a drowning man grasping at driftwood, only to discover too late in the game that it's also sinking. So the world is filled with marriages that resemble business mergers gone horribly wrong, where passion has given way to petty negotiations over who last emptied the dishwasher. It's a spectacle as old as time, and no less absurd for its unfortunate persistence. And the only real mystery is why, after so many centuries of failure, we, as live, upright human mammals, we still believe that we're qualified to pick our own partners. Well, despite dealing with adversity as a child, from a father being addicted to heroin and in prison, to living with domestic violence and losing his own grandfather who acted as a father, he's been able to transform his pain into power and purpose. Now, as a counselor, a hypnotist, and a coach, a life coach, he's focusing on empowering women and all of us, not women especially, to attract better partners and heal from past relationships. From Vancouver, Canada, with Canada, our not 51st state, I'm sure you would agree to that, over 220,000 social media followers, we want to welcome you, Luka Reedy, to Unzipped.
No, welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you so much, Cary, for having me. What an introduction. Wow.
Well, I like a lofty encomium. Otherwise, why bother? I could just go in the bathroom and pull my pud. But no, you're here, so no pud pulling that we can see on the radio side. However, if you are watching on YouTube, kpfk.net, you won't see that here. Just philosophically anyway. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood trauma and how you've been able to transfer that into a source of strength and motivation. All that to say that many of our viewers and listeners are gay, so they come with, let's just say, a whole lot of baggage, maybe more so than many other people, because a lot of people have simply had to live two whole lives at the same time. But you've survived one and done it handily.
Cary, I think this is the era of unpacking our baggage. I think we're in a very blessed season of life and era of, generationally, to be able to consciously work through that. Uh, as you said before, my father was a heroin addict and went to prison. I think that just oozes trauma right there. I got to a period in my life where I just thought that was life. My dad didn't have a dad. Didn't My stepfather was abusive. My grandfather died, and I had to, figure out how to be a man without these role models. And unfortunately, I made lots of mistakes because of what I went through, and those mistakes that ended up in my relationship of treating women not the best or lying and cheating, and uh, led to my own addictions as well. And you kind of get to a point where a relationship ends, and then another relationship ends, and then you start to go, hang on a second, is it them or am I the common denominator? And once I started to realize, like, I'm the common denominator here, I started to really understand that the impact that the people, my caregivers, and the experience that I had growing up was actually influencing my behaviors as well.
It's great self awareness, Luka Reedy. Most people do not realize they are the common denominator. After 68,243 serial relationships, most of which are not monogamous, all ending crashing and burning. So let's just keep doing it again. They never seem to have the awareness that they were the same one in every single situation. They're not watching a Netflix series. They are, in fact, the protagonist. That's a huge, I think, piece of critical information that if you want to change things, you have to change so that things will change along with it.
Like, is there any other way? And I know that's really hard to hear. There is really hard to hear. Some people are probably like, turn this change stations as we speak. But honestly, I think if you've tried everything of like trying to pick 68,000 partners and you're hoping the next one could be different, then there might be the option to try another way. They say, like, there's a common saying is like, if you want to change the world that you see, change the what is that saying? If you want to live in a different world, you've got to become a different person. And I think for me, that was getting to the point of, one, I wanted a better relationship. I kept saying, I'm never going to do this relationship. I'm never going to do that again. And so I had to understand, why was I doing that in the first place. So the only option for me was, if I wanted a better relationship, I had to look at myself and becoming a better person. So I say this: if you want the best relationship you've ever had, that relationship starts with you.
Yes. Amen to that. We're going to open up the phones in just a few minutes, too, by the way, at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, because a lot of us are wondering exactly how to pull this off. Also, there's a little wriggle. You and I had a chance to do an interview some months ago, but back then it was a different political climate, and
Mm.
people literally weren't in the crosshairs. So straight white men not in the crosshairs, other people in the crosshairs. Already our Department of, well, formerly known as, it might still exist, where we have national parks, things that Teddy Roosevelt, one of our great presidents going back to the turn of the previous century, but they've gotten rid of the T on LGB and the Q and the plus. So it is now LGB. We'll see how long that even lasts. So now we're talking about dating, but do you have to go back in the closet and date on the QT? Like, this is a whole layer of
Mm.
secrecy. And I think part of your objective is to have people be authentic, transparent, honest with their partner. But now you may have to do it undercover. Like, who imagined this?
Yes, it's a definitely it's an interesting place that we're in right now. That's for sure. I think the idea of love transcends all those boundaries itself, and that's one of the greatest things I'm here to really, create and share in this world, is just like what healthy love really looks like. I don't think it looks like what type of person that you love. I think it's the healthy love, the level of love that you have for yourself. I am straight. So it's a bit. I'll only have a certain level of experience with that, because there's adversity and hardships that I'll never truly know. But I do know that in the world that we can have, I think, a different perspective on how we view ourselves. And I think regardless of what's happening politically and happening in the world and the limitations that are on us right now and who we can love and people are saying all this sort of stuff, I think you can still, instead of going behind the closet or whatever, back to being in the closet and loving whoever you want to love is just, uh, there is still space for you, I think, to grow that level of love within yourself. And there's still people who were gonna not worry about those boundaries and just keep loving the way they've always loved. And I think there are still people out there who can still love themselves a little bit more and find a better mate in however which way they want to find them. And I think that is something better to focus on in the interim while all this is
Well,
going on.
well said. It's a tonic, especially during these times. I realize you're in the potential 51st state, but you still have things like health care, good table manners, public transportation, and services. We don't. So I think it's important to hear that we have straight allies. We forget. It's easy to forget. In 2 weeks, we've been told they don't exist. In fact, they've been expunged off official government websites. There is no one who's got your back. But in fact, most people at the end of the day, if you put 100 people on an island, pretty soon someone's going to make the shoes, and then somebody's going to cut the hair, and well, I'll cook the food. Well, I'll hunt for the fish. And people just tend to get along no matter who they are. If we look at Africa, for instance, the voodoo, the witch doctors are, well, let's just call them drag queens, shall we? Cross-dressers, whatever you want to call it, but they are both male and female simultaneously. Going back to the ancient Greeks, Zeus, the god of all gods, Zeus, from which we get the word Deus or Deuteronomy, or Jesus, the god of all gods, had Ganymede, both male and female at the same time. So I think this is important when we're talking about love, to remember that everybody has a chance to enjoy it, and that it's Hotel Earth and everyone gets a room. And I realize we would not be having this conversation a month ago, but now more than ever, I think for anyone to be open to even want to go on a date or go on an app and have a digital signature, these are bizarre times. So what thinking might we have to help people get that self-esteem again and be able to re-navigate relationships despite the fear that we all have?
Yeah, you know what? I think one of the things that's really lacking, Cary, is our ability to see ourselves in other people. And if we look, I call this thing the sacred mirror. It's like if we look at all the people that we're angry at, we're triggered by, we're rejecting, um, there's a part of us hidden in them, and that's something that has transformed my life. And it does something. It's called it takes us to this level of responsibility that again comes back to uh, focusing on who we are. And I know because we've tried to change other people, and we try to, and we can always advocate for things, and we can always stand up for things, which is separate to this. But it's what I find is that the world heals when we heal that part of us that's being reflected in that person that we're triggered by. So if we can identify, this is a beautiful practice called Ho'oponopono. If anyone has done it or not heard of it, please go and look it up. It's a lot of O's, a lot of P's, and you probably will spell it wrong on multiple times. Type something in. Some of my clients called it Honopupu, and it's been called many different things. But the essence, it's from this ancient practice in Hawaii, stemming from Hawaii. I'm Maori background, so I'm indigenous to New Zealand, and similar Polynesian roots. And that practice is all about self-identity, so seeing yourself in others and healing. And there's a great book called Zero Limits. Zero Limits was written by a psychologist from Hawaii, who the essence of the story goes that he actually, without seeing any patients from this psych ward in a hospital in Honolulu, this place was terrible. It had paint peeling off the walls. It was that toxic. It had people in straitjackets, people heavily medicated, the uh, the people that weren't social workers and psychologists, everyone having that many sick days. They didn't want to show up to work. It was just not the right place. 2 years he worked in this place. He did not see one single person. He used this practice. He identified parts of him that were in each of these people using just the manila folders, their little patient intake form. He sat in the office every day. And there's testimonies from his colleagues that said they never saw him at a meeting or never saw him work with a patient. 2 years later, that ward, that psych ward, shuts down because the patients were released, they were taken off medication. And that just goes to show the power in, like, the political landscape and the influence that we can really have changing those parts of this world by changing us. And I just said this to someone today. If you really want your parent to change, you really want your partner to change, you really want your friend to change, you really want the political leaders of this world to change, start with changing yourself. If you can identify parts of them within you, and if you look deep enough, and if you really honestly look deep enough, you'll see it. Things can and will change. It's kind of like a miracle. And when you witness it once or twice and a couple of times, you just go, "Oh my God, I actually have the power."
And this is Gandhi, be the change that you want to experience. Cary
Mm,
Harrison with you. This is Unzipped, special presentation of IMRU Radio. We're talking right now to Luka Reedy. He's a life coach and a hypnotherapist and also an expert in relationships. So we're getting kind of a bird's eye view of how to pick a better mate as opposed to being really needy, and any live mammal in the room will do. Get a dog if that's what you want. But we're finding out that people are not dogs. Sure, they have to eat. Yeah, you have to clean up after them, but you could actually get a whole lot more. Who knew? And you don't have to shop thousands of them to figure that out. You're actually getting to save 5 years of particular hell by paying attention right now and learning a little more. Luca, let's talk a little bit about the difference between men and women. Men
mm,
use their eyeballs. They see something that looks attractive, and there it is. Content is maybe secondary in the
mm,
initial stage. With women, they acknowledge with their eyeballs, but content tends to be more primary. So you have, and this could be women and women, where they have, it's just content, period, and a U-Haul within 2 days. I say that because my twin sister, or twister, is a lesbian, and I know this from live experience. So men, straight, gay, this, that, whatever, eyeballs. Women, more content driven. They also tend to get pregnant, and other things happen if they went and just had as good a time as all men could and would if they could all get away with it.
mm.
How are we evolving more to understand each other better, given apps where women can, for the first time ever in all of human history, they get to swipe the men away?
Oh yeah.
Before, throughout all of history, men just picked and plucked the women, and Bob's your uncle. Different
Mm.
now.
It's very different now. I love the essence of the kind of the theories of evolutionary psychology, where I think all women should go back to being the chooser. Anyone who, in a relationship that identifies themselves as a woman, it's there's a lot of women out there who beg to be chosen. A lot of people beg to be chosen. But then you look at I'll speak to anyone who has a womb here or identifies as a woman, or able to create life. You have an infinite amount. Sorry, you have a finite amount of eggs, and these eggs need to be passed on to the right person. And we're out here acting like anyone will do because of this deep need for uh, acknowledgement, or we've got this underlying fear of rejection, or we've been abandoned so we can't lose someone, or we feel lonely so we have to get someone, so we give away this sacred part of us to anyone. And so I feel like there's this shift to coming back to remembering this, Cary, that women have this incredible ability to literally create me and you. Now, I just had a child. My reverence.
And your figure looks great.
Yeah, I got rid of that water weight. I got rid of the fluids very quickly. I can see the sculptures of my feet again. They're no longer balloons. Thank you very much. My reverence for the female body is incredible. I said to my wife, I said, I will never forget what you've done for me here. And if my child in 15 years is chucking a tantrum and hating her mother, I'll say, hey, do you know what your mother did for you? And I really didn't have that. I thought I had a level of respect for women before that, and a level of admiration. But watching my wife give birth is just a whole nother level. That beautiful, sacred experience shouldn't just be given to anyone. Now, men, they have an infinite amount of sperm. They can create sperm for left, right, and center for the rest of their lives. And looking at the population charts around the world, there are more men born than women. And to me, people, there's some theories about this saying that like Mother Nature, life is creating more men to reproduce because men have an infinite supply. And it kind of like the theory of evolutionary psychology is that women want to look for a strong man to pass their genes onto so their offspring survive, right? That's just a theory. But that's the theory that makes sense to me. And so I look back at this and I go, hang on a second, we got it all wrong. Why are you dropping your standards? Why are you chasing that person? Because you feel like you're not good enough, because you feel like you're never going to meet someone, you're always going to be alone. Why are you doing that if your body is programmed to create this beautiful life? So I think it's about changing how you view yourself, even as a man as well, like starting to honor the fact that you have got this, this big heart that breathes and this body that functions, this innate intelligence. Like everyone is so amazing. So we've got to come back to just realizing that there is this essence, this power, and we are very much just physiologically programmed differently.
Cary Harrison with you. This is Unzipped, reminding you and inviting you to go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, where you can see live streaming video of this and subscribe to our YouTube channel because as Project 2025 continues to unfold, this very radio station is in the crosshairs of being terminated. So now more than ever, do we need to stay connected? Go to kpfk.net, subscribe so that if we learn about anything that's going to happen up front, we can let you know in advance. We're talking right now to Luka Reedy. He is a hypnotist, which is a kind of a special psychotherapist that it can actually motivate, unlike a psychotherapist with a legal pad who doesn't say a word, takes notes, kicks you out after 47 minutes. You actually guide and direct people to find and discover their passions. Let's sort of jump into that for just a second. People can actually change even if they don't know how to.
Everyone is capable of changing, and I think the first level of the first stage that you want to get to is, I think for a lot of people, they get to rock bottom and they go, I have to, but it doesn't have to always get to rock bottom. I think I see a lot of people at rock bottom to go, oh my God, I need to change. But there are signs leading up to that. There are signs where there's, consistent little adversities consistently popping up in your life or patterns repeating themselves. If there's a pattern that isn't kind of working for you, especially in relationships, like you're kind of getting friend zoned consistently, or you're getting someone who goes all in and then pulls out, and you're the type of person that wears your heart on your sleeve, and then all of a sudden you get hurt. These are examples of patterns. If you're seeing a pattern done just a couple of times, and a relationship over time, that's a long period of time. If that's happened in a couple of relationships, that's your cue to go, you know what, something has to change, because a pattern done over time doesn't have to be the way. Every pattern can be changed and you can create new patterns. What I love to see from people that I work with and people that have come across my path is getting better patterns. I feel like I'm in a great relationship that has better patterns. Before I was in a terrible relationships that had terrible patterns, but the patterns give you an insight onto what can potentially change for you. So if you've got something that you're experiencing over and over that you don't like, that you don't want, that's the cue that you can change.
Well, this is great stuff. I really appreciate your coming on today, Luka Reedy, and talking a little bit about picking better partners, because many of us have broken pickers. I'm going to suggest that probably 90% of people that go to a therapist, that's all they talk about: relationships, dating, loneliness. There's no one out there. There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. There's absolutely nobody for me. Nobody sees me. I'm invisible, blah, 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 loneliness. And it's just not true. There are hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of millions of people that you would find hot and interesting and compelling, but they're not going to be knocking on your door. They don't do house calls, strangers that want to meet you. If you want your hand shaken, you have to actually put it out. And many of us are afraid to do that.
Do you want a great partner? Don't stay on the couch. Unfortunately, you've got to put yourself back out into this world. there are going to be, I call it the 9 out of 10 rule. 9 out of 10 people aren't going to be your person. Most people are looking for the perfect person on try one. Look, if you get to, I've said that online sometimes, and someone said, "What about 999 out of 1,000? Does that's about my ratio?" So I had a good laugh at that because some people have tried. They have gone and tested every avenue of this, local community, and they've found nobody. They keep getting the same problem. But I think the biggest thing is you've just got to kind of remember that there's just one person, and even if one person is kind of good and doesn't work out, that's not your person. The right person for you isn't going to always necessarily be perfect, but they're going to be the most compatible. And I think compatibility trumps everything here. You want to make sure that that the core, the big questions, like what are you going to do for your career? Where do you want to live? Right? These big questions need to be in alignment. The values, the way you see the world, obviously in, your political climate, what's your political belief? These core things that make a difference in your life have to be in alignment. Now, you don't want to date yourself. You don't want to be dating someone who's 100% like you, because I think you're going to be bored. You want to have some differences, some different interests. Those core differences are not in your core values. And so when you have those differences, it allows you to grow. So you're not looking for this perfect person that doesn't trigger you, it doesn't make you upset. Hey, I've been very happily married. I'm in a great relationship right now. I've had a child with my wife, and she triggers the shit out of me. I'm sorry if I'm not sure I should swear or not. She triggers me.
I think Wendell just dumped that, so it never happened.
Perfect. She triggers me, and I'm in a great relationship. So if you're out there thinking perfect has to exist, don't look for perfect. Look for alignment. Alignment will always win over time.
Well, this is great stuff. We do have a comment from one of the people watching on YouTube. It's at kpfk.net, by the way, if you'd like to see Luka Reedy, if you'd like to see the show, if you'd like to get the archives, simply go to kpfk.net. Thomas Smith, who clearly must be English or British or UK-ish, the best cure is to get drunk and go to a pub and then bring a girl home and shag all night and repeat. It is one route, ROOT, to get there for sure.
Hey, well, let's see if that problem keeps persistent for you there, buddy. Because I haven't found that solution to be worthwhile. I think we've all been there, we've all done that, and we know it doesn't go down a very nice path. But you could go to the pub. There's nothing wrong going to the pub, but maybe going home by yourself and then having a good look in the mirror might work a little bit better next time.
I like to say that we all know how to get laid. We all know how to do it. I mean, I can't say we all do. Most of us do. It's the time in between getting laid that needs a little muscle building, little, improvement, let's say. And if you could be alone with yourself and actually be comfortable, then you can that's what you're offering someone else, someone who's got their life together and not looking just to have some kind of entanglement because you don't know how to do anything more. So I appreciate this. Hey, Luca, how do we follow you, get your books, understand more about you?
Everything I do is on my social media. So if you go to my Instagram and look me up, Luka Reedy, you'll see lots of videos, lots of things that I offer as well. So LukaReedy on Instagram.
All right, my friend. Very much appreciate your coming on today. Luka Reedy, thank you so much. And as soon as people pick better mates, I want them to let us know, and we can take all the credit for that, you and me.
Absolutely. It was me and you all the way.
All
Thanks,
right, my
Cary.
friend. Take care. Be well. From our 51st state of Canada. Yep. Cary Harrison with you. We're going to pause right now, give a little love to your favorite radio station. And then when we return, we're going to talk to Andy Socker. He is with the Lavender Effect. They do oral history projects and basically chronicle an entire history that is now, as we speak, being erased as though it never existed. So when he came up with this idea many years ago, he knew how important this would be. And today, it is more important than ever. We're going to hear from him. But first, this.
IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison. Your sex, your stories, and everything in between.
And it is Cary Harrison. This is Unzipped. I want to give a shout out to KPFK, your favorite radio station, because now more than ever, we are an important and vital communication source. We are in the crosshairs. We've been listed specifically by call letters, by Project 2025. So we are on their hit parade of hit men. It's true. 10 years ago, we said, you got to support us because, and it was all true. We had light bills to pay. We had normal problems that a public radio station will have. Today, we have abnormal extracurricular problems that have nothing to do with paying the light bill. It is a much greater thing. And as the AP has now been banned from being in the Oval Office, that's the Associated Press. We're talking in the top 5. They are banning mainstream media from politics. It is happening as we speak, almost on a daily basis. This radio station is the only thing that tethers millions of people to any possible information that no longer is free-flowing, where the mainstream media no longer has access. We still have access to you. You still have it to us. That's why I'm asking you right now to pick up the phone right now. Your clock radio is set to KPFK. It wakes you up. You listen to us while you get ready for your day. Do you listen during your lunch break? You still do. When you think about it, you spend a lot of time with us, and we spend a lot of time with you. We do nothing more than sit around and create this stuff so that we can get vital news and information out to you. I want you to pick up the phone right now and call 818-985-KPFK. Make a donation. 25, 50 bucks, 75, 100, 150, whatever you can do. Imagine if you could just pay the AP to just show up in the White House. Well, they can't. They've been blocked. Likewise, at the Pentagon, the only official news service now allowed in there, this is the largest military organization on the planet, is Breitbart News, which is kind of not really news, is it? This is the reality of now. This is why you need to pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make a donation. Support Unzipped. Support the fact that I keep showing up like this, pain as it is, for free and for fun, to try to get out information and help us all along. Yes, this is a specialty flavored show. It deals with the fact that we actually have emotions and we are live humans as well. But if you take that away, then all the hope is gone amidst this grim and horrible political reality. If we lose our humanity, we lose our hope, we lose the will to fight. So pick up the phone and support KPFK at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Please make a donation, whatever you can afford, because it matters. And just know, because we are one of the few shows here that live streams on everything from not only just YouTube, if you go to kpfk.net, but also we're live streaming on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on pretty much everything with a chip and a signal, including clips on TikTok. Why? Because they have a permanent shelf life. And there was a time many years ago when we would be on the air, and if you missed the show, it didn't happen. Just like that. Of course it didn't. It was an analog signal. You were in your car, you didn't hear it, or you just caught the ending, you missed all of it, it did not replay. Well, now everything we do, the guest that you just heard minutes ago, it's available for you to view and to review. Plus, we share information on our regular show, Friday mornings at 10, called the Cary Harrison Files. We share that with students around the world. And I go to Europe and teach these young kids how to do journalism, how to fact check, how to find out if it's AI or if it's real, so that they have the critical thinking skills to be able to navigate the future that you and I suffer under, that they still have a range of motion in Europe that we are losing here. We're going to look to them to help save our rear end. But we have to fund that. We have to make sure we are available to do that. So I'm asking you right now to pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, and make the donation that fits you so that you can support public radio, the free flow of information at a time when, for real, it's being taken away from you. I mentioned earlier the National Park Service, which runs the Stonewall National Monument, which is right outside the Stonewall Hotel, the Stonewall Museum in New York City, right there, that little park I think it's Christopher Street, or is it 4th, whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. That no longer says LGBT through presidential directive. They've gotten rid of the T, they've gotten rid of the Q, they've gotten rid of the plus. It is now LGB. And while that may be controversially a win for a whole lot of people who wanted to get rid of the rest of the letters, it's now down to 3. Then it's going to go down to 2. Then it's going to go down to 1. And then it's going to go down to 0. And we will have been expunged from all history. The history books will not reflect it, much as in red states like Florida and other ones, completely eradicated, along with African Americans who were slaves, except you can't say that in certain states. This is the hors d'oeuvre before a giant entree to come that is truly terrifying for a lot of people. But you can support public radio right now. You can support KPFK. My final pitch, pick up the phone, donate what you can at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Plus, we're going to open up the phones. We're going to let you ask some questions of Andy Soccer. You can press 1 to go on the air, press 2 to make a donation at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735.
IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison, exploring the complexity of human desire and everything in between.
And this is Unzipped. We are live streaming video right now at the Cary Harrison YouTube channel, which you can find super easily by going to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, where if you're driving, when you show up, you can get out, you can continue on your mobile phone, and it's that easy. Plus, definitely subscribe so we can stay in touch. We get a lot of insider information well before it becomes public. We can let you know. Plus, there's a free newsletter. You can simply go to caryharrison.com. We will supply archives. We will supply transcripts of all of these shows, clips, everything for you, because you have a right to know, and no one has the right to block the free flow of information from you. I want to bring on Andy Soccer. Andy is with the Lavender Effect. Some years ago, he decided to create this to provide an oral history project for a civilization such as ours, the many hundreds of millions around the planet of Earth out of 8 billion, some maybe 10%. That's a lot of live humans whose stories, as they get older, they would maybe perish, which happens in life. You get old, you take off, but these would be restored and kept for posterity. Well, here we are now. All of this is being eradicated, and he happens to have the keys to a car, some very important archives that might otherwise not exist had he not taken up the mantle to do this. Andy Soccer, I want to welcome you to Unzipped.
Thanks so much, Cary. It's great to see you.
Now, you have put together, you've actually got a new initiative sitting on the tarmac right now, and maybe a month ago, you had no idea that it would be truly as relevant as it is today.
I never anticipated the demand for these testimonies the way we are situated right now. I started the Lavender Effect in 2012 officially, but this was after I put together a pop-up museum on LA's LGBTQIA history. And the reason why we put this museum together was because we lost Prop 8. And Proposition 8 basically took the right for us to marry away by popular vote. That really engaged a lot of us in 2008 to do something. And I shared this belief with some younger activists in this organization called Roots of Equality, that if we don't know the past, we're doomed to repeat it. And so we put together this pop-up museum, and thousands of people came through the museum and learned about the grassroots history of Southern California. A lot of people know Hollywood, but they didn't know what happened below the stars like Ellen DeGeneres.
Right. And you also have in your archives at the lavendereffect.org, the lavendereffect.org, you have people that have already passed on. These are old timers. I mean, you could call them that, but these are founders of the entire movement. There really was no movement in the past. There were people doing what they did. Maybe they could get away with it. A lot of us don't know that the LA Times and the LAPD, once upon a time, still a little bit, but they were in serious cahoots, raiding bars, beating people up, publishing people's names in the newspaper. They had to pay up to 10 grand to have their name as a gay person in a gay bar in the 1950s and 60s to not have it published in the newspaper. Talk about crazy history we wouldn't know about, but you have on tape the original people that fought in the original movements.
Yeah, when I was doing the history for this pop-up museum, there was a lack of testimonies from these pioneers that really paved the way to a movement. And we're part, we hear about Stonewall, we hear about Harvey Milk in San Francisco, but a lot of things took place in Southern California. There was this law on the books called the masquerading law that said if you wear another gender's article of clothing, one article of clothing, you could be thrown in jail. So that was just an easy way to access people that were going to the bars that may, some lesbians were wearing men's pants. They could be thrown in jail because the zipper was in the front at the time. I mean, these were notorious laws that profiled queer people and threw them in jail just as a daily routine. So when we started recording or when we started documenting this history, there was a lack of personal testimonies. So, I worked with Steven Spielberg back in the 80s and 90s, and it was really amazing what he did with the Shoah Foundation. And I observed what was going on there. It was too early in the 90s to do anything queer related to the Shoah, but that's the model that we used. Steven Spielberg interviewed, I think, 52,000 Holocaust survivors. So this is a perfect model for the kind of interviews that we wanted to do. So that became our next big project after the museum.
And equally, of those 52,000 interviewed back in the 80s and 90s, probably a full half or greater are no longer with us. It's the same model that you have, is that it's evidence that this happened. And
Yes.
right now we're dealing with a mass erasure of things that happened. The masquerading law you talked about a little earlier, Andy Socker, reminds me of Napoleonic law, where in New Orleans, in Louisiana, when it was a French owned, and Napoleon passed laws that loitering was punishable because you were imitating a turtle. So there were masquerading laws against imitating turtles as opposed to loitering. And they were targeted to people, whoever that was at the time. But, we also know that in England, going back, the age of consent was, 19 or 21, but the age of consent for straight people was like 16. So again, targeted specifically to reduce the likelihood of fill in the blank. And I wonder, just sort of philosophically, what is the objection to all of this? My sense is that the average straight man, not all of them, but the average one, realizes he cannot control a gay guy. Gay guys can see 360 top and bottom, look around the corner. They are probably living double lives or have at one point in their life. They've got real wiles, and we also know that the brain is more complex. We go back to World War II. The Department of War specifically picked gay men, or homosexuals, as they called them at the time, because they were the greatest cryptographers that were alive. The brain has a greater capacity. This is, I know, in modern times still, We're not saying that straight men, no, this has nothing to do with it. It's just the particular flavor of a certain group of people. And if you're the dominating force that we now see in a government that's grabbing at things the way they are, they know that they can't control a certain, I mean, how do you control a transgender? How do you make them like what you're doing? It's kind of
Well,
hard.
well, they've erased, as you were saying, they've erased the transgender community. There was several Native American tribes with two-spirited people. That was code for queer. Basically, they were or somewhere in between, and they were highly respected. They were given important roles in the tribes, like truth seekers and seers of the future and educators. And it's a shame that we've completely erased that value system from society in general, and basically, washed over the nuances and subtleties of these unique gifts that come with being somewhere not straight.
I was talking earlier, Andy Soccer, with Luka Reedy, who was helping us pick better mates as opposed to just grab anything that's warm and alive with a little fur on it and help like streamline that down to something a little more suitable. And I had mentioned the voodoo priests in much of Africa, and they are basically twin spirits. So they would wear women's garments, but they were male. So they were both genders at the same time. And their purpose was not to walk around as a sort of public burlesque, but they were the fertility gods. And you can't have one without the other. You need pistil and stamen if you're a flower. It's the only way it works. And so it's always been accepted, and they are welcomed, obviously, into people's homes because you want that vibe of something that is balanced like that. And I think that's the remarkable thing. So in your sense, having talked to many of these founding mothers and fathers of the movement, where they grew up in a time where not only was it illegal, but punishable in many ways, and we see ourselves returning to that, did they have solutions or techniques or tricks or ways to look at it so that they could continue to evolve and work their way through it?
Well, one amazing pioneer, his name is Reverend Troy Perry. He founded the MCC Church, the Metropolitan Community Church, that is now a church in many different countries, that essentially said that you're loved by God, whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever. And this was a pioneering thought from someone that came from a Baptist upbringing. And, he was at first tormented by this clash and realized one amazing moment that we're all a gift from God, and that if you believe in God, that God accepts you as you are, made you as you are. And so he started this amazing church that was holistically accepting of queer people, LGBT people. We keep adding letters to the alphabet,
Not anymore.
and there is always going to be more. That's the beauty of our community. But he just took it on right at the jugular almost and said, no, God loves me. I'm gay, but I am loved by my God, and I'm going to preach that to everyone I can. And he's done that. He's still alive, still doing this work in many different countries, and is a real, pioneer in his own right, and has inspired other religions to do the same. There's the first gay synagogue started in Southern California as well. They were borrowing his space for a short time, and then they built their own. So that's the beauty of some of this grassroots activity in Southern California that I really feel shows other countries, other states, other people a roadmap to success. And that's one of the beauties of learning and studying these testimonies, is that you'll get a roadmap to how to fight opposition.
That is so important at the lavendereffect.org. That's lavendereffect.org, as opposed to an affectation like Dr. Smith, another conversation for another time.
Oh my.
Oh my, oh dude, yeah.
Oh my.
I was thinking about the God word, which can be off-putting to some. It can be inviting and comforting to others. So another word for that might be good orderly direction, or the universe, Mother Nature.
Mhm.
I think a lot of us sometimes forget that this is a natural occurrence. It is not a decision made on a Tuesday because somebody was confused. You're literally born that way. It is a fact. Just like, ask any straight man, do you wake up in the morning and say, I'm gonna like girls? I am. No, never. Do they ever think about, nope, never, not even once. Nope, And so likewise, it's the same thing. You don't wake up and have to get, I'm gonna like guys. I promise. It's the word, it's impossible, but I'm gonna do, no. It's just natural. But without reminding people of that, they are gonna think, because they've been told in recent times, that it's somebody's bad choice. But if it were a choice, well, I guess a lot of Republicans do choose it, but that's different. That's a whole different thing, right?
Well, it's proven that trying to work against your natural tendencies really does create more havoc in your brain and in your future than just not going with the flow. And I think it's very dangerous to live in a very binary world. There are subtle nuances that have always existed throughout all time for thousands of years. And the gay community, the queer community, has often been the scapegoat when convenient. And that's exactly what's happening again out of Washington, D.C., our great country. And people are going to revolt. There was this occurrence not so long ago called the Lavender Scare, where many people, tens of thousands of people that were perceived as being queer or gay, were fired from the federal government. Sound familiar? Well, this happened
1950s.
1950s, 1960s, and here we go again, right? And what happened was those people became activists. Those people lost their jobs. Like you said, they were listed in the paper. They couldn't get another job because they were labeled queer. They had the scarlet letter. Well, they became activists and started a revolution. And that was really the beginning of the modern day LGBT movement. Then we had a big boost, a big acceleration during the AIDS epidemic, because so many people were exposed. They were dying. They were dying at very young ages. They had to come out. There was no choice. A diagnosis was essentially a death sentence back in the 80s and even into the early 90s. So that exploded the revolution and made the world realize how many gay people exist. And thank God the lesbians came to work with the gay men for the first time, and we worked together to save lives, to create hospice, to try to get federal support when the federal government was ignoring us. So that was another big wave of our revolution. And I think we're all being called to action again.
Yes, Ralph Nader has even said that the politics of the day are galvanizing the public. We may not see it because it's even places like CNN and others are too afraid. The AP already having been banned from the White House. That's the Associated Press and others. They're nervous, so we're not seeing the kind of coverage. But in Southern California, LA, there are marches. There are marches all over the country. So it is happening. It is galvanizing. How do people follow you, Andy, and learn more about what you do?
Just go to thelavendereffect.org and sign up for our email blast. It's confidential. We don't share that with anyone. That's thelavendereffect.org. And we'll send you information about our programming. On our website, you'll see a lot of links to various programs, including our oral histories that can really educate people in terms of what has been done in the past and what might be done in the very near future.
Well, I'm looking forward to having you back on because this is such a critical conversation. It's not just sort of historically interesting. It's a touchstone to things to come and how to navigate a truly uncertain future. I want to thank you, Andy Sacker, with the Lavender Effect. Thank you so much for joining us today on Unzipped, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Cary Harrison with you. This is Unzipped. We're going to take the last couple of minutes and give KPFK some love. As you've heard, the lavender scare, it was real in the 1950s. It's back. Every gay person that is known is being fired from the federal government. It did start activism as we knew it at the time. All of us are now being called into action one way or the other. It is galvanizing the public, and you can take control over this powerlessness that you feel and that you see in truly a bizarre nightmare scenario by supporting free speech as it still exists here. You can pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make the donation that fits for you and support public radio. This is our signal. And because we do something special here on Unzipped, IMRU, the longest running gay radio show in all of American history, over 35 years. We're still here. We're also live streaming. So you can catch us on kpfk.net. You're going to see archives of this and other. Plus, it's a podcast, which means it has a permanent shelf life, educating millions of people around the country that would not hear this content, but it's made possible by KPFK. So I want you to pick up the phone and call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make the donation that works for you, 25, 50, 75, 100, and know that it's got a shelf life and that it's got real distribution. Think about it. In the old days, if a signal went out and you missed it, it didn't happen. Now it happens in perpetuity, thanks to technology and the way we're using it here to make sure that you get the signal. You can go to the lavendereffect.org, by the way, and learn more. Learn tricks of the trade. See from the original pioneers how they were able to create and develop activism in a place that had none because it was totally illegal. Yet they invented it. This is the strength of gay people who have done so much for the planet. Why do you think there was that issue between Disney and Ron DeSantis of Florida? Disney, which controls giant networks, sports networks, theme parks all around the world. If you took their gays out, guess what happens to them? Utter and total collapse. And they know it. We know it. You know it. You know who you are. You know what you think about. You know what you fantasize about. Maybe it's just chicks. Good. You have the right to have that. Everyone has the right to have what they want. Please pick up the phone. Call 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Make the donation that fits for you and know that you're supporting Unzipped. Know that you're supporting the way that we archive by video streaming at kpfk.net. Know that you have taken control of a time of pure powerlessness and mayhem. I believe we're out of time here. This is Cary Harrison. Thanking you so much for joining us today on Unzipped. I want to thank the great Renee Yawarski, who is in New York. Thank you for being the awesome directress that you are, the goddess upon a bended knee. I stand at the moment. Can you stand on a knee? Maybe I'm kneeling on a knee, to be more accurate. And thank you, Handy Wendell, for handily wendling this. All right, everyone, I am so thrilled to be here with you, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks here on Unzipped.
IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison. Your sex, your stories, and everything in between.